Everything changed after the pandemic.
We lost a sense of community.
Educators are rightly concerned, as are parents and many policymakers.
This is a hard challenge that we need a lot of people to engage in.
What happens in a school when you have that many students absent?
A student is sitting there and this is their moment with you, but they have an entire world that they're juggling behind them.
So we knew that we had to do everything that we possibly could do to make sure that we get our kids back in our building.
A lot of people think, oh, they just don't want to be here. That is not the case.
Chronic absenteeism is a relatively new measure. It means that a student is missing 10% of the time on roll for any reason. Educators and families are used to thinking about truancy, which is only unexcused absences. Often, schools will also look at average daily attendance because that tells you how many children are in school on average. That's really different from chronic absence, which measures how much time a student is actually in school, and it has an impact on their achievement and learning.
Our rates of chronic absenteeism weren't great before the pandemic, but after and during the pandemic, they shot up considerably.
When you have something gone from your life for 2 years, the other things become the priority. The school now is kind of fighting for space again.
Students miss out on creating relationships, extracurricular activities, being involved in different events. So they miss out on so much more.
The soft skills that happens with coming into a school building, meaning I get up in the morning, I get to school on time, I go to all of my classes on time, I work really hard. These are skills that are transferable into the workplace.
When I got here in 2021, Metcalfe had really just opened up from the pandemic. When CPS closed and reopened, we didn't come back to school as normal. School didn't feel like school. You had to be 6 feet apart. Kids came back, you couldn't see smiles.
Prior to the pandemic, 16% of students were chronically absent in the United States. After the pandemic, it spiked to almost 30% nationwide, nearly doubling.
And if you look at the chronic absenteeism rates across the country, most schools and most districts still have really high chronic absenteeism rates.
I think the pandemic created a disconnect. Students were going through different things in their home life, with their mental health. Students were dealing with isolation. I've had students that lost 2 and 3 family members because if you're dealing with that loss, you're not thinking about what's going on in the school building.
The idea of returning often is a big challenge for a student because they have a lot of narrative in their head saying, well, I'm so far behind, how do I catch up?
Now it's the inevitable. I can't recover from this and then can just give up totally.
One of the things that CPS is really trying to work hard at is making sure that there's plans to not only bring a student back, but to re-engage them in a successful way so they don't feel overwhelmed.
Many student groups already had high levels of chronic absenteeism. Students from particular racial ethnic groups have always had very high levels. What happened after COVID was we saw the gaps widening. Students with disabilities, students who were homeless, they had even higher levels. It was incredibly alarming to see chronic absence levels for particular groups approaching 70, 80%. I had never seen anything like that prior to COVID.
Attendance is not just a two-dimensional issue. It is really a complex issue. Each student is a story. Each absence means there's something going on.
We typically talk about the reasons students are missing school and divide them into 4 big buckets. First are barriers. Barriers are things that keep a student from getting to school. It might be something like poor transportation or acute illness. something that isn't in the control of the student or family. The second is aversion. The student isn't coming because he or she is avoiding a situation that is uncomfortable in the school building. Disengagement is when a student doesn't want to come because they don't feel a connection, for example, with a caring adult or with a peer group. And the final category are misconceptions. One of the misconceptions about absences that families have is that their child isn't harmed by not being in school a couple of days a month.
It adds up, and then it creates a gap as far as the learning and academic gap goes.
Parents thought we can still be out and they can make it up. Making work up is a misconception. It's not the same as being able to critically think and have that student discourse and those discussions that we have in a classroom when we're working with each other.
A lot of times when students are chronically absent, it's usually due to a reason that their family have no control over. Those situations can range from families in temporary living situations to families that are victims of domestic abuse or violence.
We had a high level of chronic absenteeism due to factors related to poverty.
It could be a circumstance that's happening at the home, and it's important that the relational trust is there with the school and the family, so they'll actually tell you, and you can see if you can mitigate any of those barriers.
Some students don't have the option to go to school. Some students have to miss school because they have to take care of their younger sibling, or because they don't have a ride or anything. It's not up to the student to come to school all the time.
Some locations, it could be transportation issues. We know post-pandemic that there's a bus driver shortage across the nation. We know that there are some situations where students are still the primary breadwinners. And then there's situations where students just don't feel like they need to be at school and that they are disengaged from the schooling experience and they vote with their feet.
Typically the last thing that happens is the student stops coming. They might stop coming through different signs. Their grades might drop. They might feel a little bit more angry in school. They may be more quiet, but they might stop showing up emotionally, socially, academically, psychologically, all of that before the physical stop comes. And so we really try to work really hard for the social emotional learning lens to see that all those identifying points are understood by our schools and that these teams are looking for those, for the warning signs, so they're getting in front of it versus waiting to that final step.
Students that are chronically absent aren't getting the instruction they need. But there's some other really important factors: the connection to the school, that community building with friends and peers, that socialization aspect. Students who aren't in school regularly are also missing that.
Your peers are creating connections with each other. So now you come back to school and you don't have those friendships and connections that others have. You don't have that connection with your teacher or your administration or your school.
And these are the soft skills that when you get out of school really help you be successful in the workforce. And so this is of huge concern. We've also seen in the NAEP data, the nation's report card, that there's been a corresponding drop in math and English achievement in our students post-pandemic, and that is absolutely connected to how much or how little school they missed.
Research says that if you're missing school frequently or if you're chronically absent, you're less likely to graduate high school on time. You can also, in lower grades, be less ready for high school if you're in your middle grades. Elementary, you could be less likely to read on time in third grade. So there are definitely outcomes that are related to academics.
As a taxpayer, our return on investment is less when students are absent. They're not there to benefit, and we don't reap the benefits as a society. And when you think long-term, students who drop out, who don't finish school, are less likely to be healthy, less likely to engage in pro-social behaviors, don't make as much money, and it affects our overall economy and our communities.
To school leaders who are struggling with chronic absenteeism, I first want to reassure them they are not alone. And then I'd encourage them really to look at their data. Those strategies need to be really based on the culture and the student population at each school and within each district. What works down the street at a district might not work 30 minutes away, and that's okay. They have different students, and we need to make sure that we're really creating resources and those strategies that address the data and those needs that we're hearing from their local context.
There are a number of evidence-based practices that improve attendance. If you're an administrator, a principal, an assistant principal, make sure that your team is assembled and has the tools that they need to do the work, which means having the data on who's chronically absent, having the processes so that you reach out right away during that first absence, not waiting for absences to add up.
That data process drives who we target to make sure that they're in school. So at any given time, everybody in the building should know who's on a chronic absenteeism list, and everybody in the building should have a relationship with that family. And that's rooted in everything that I've been trained to do as a principal within our district. Look at data, create action plans, and make sure that we get those results that are going to impact student performance and achievement. And it could just be a call where we reach out to a family and say, hey, we noticed that your student is not here today. Is there anything that you need from us? And that initial conversation creates a pathway for them to receive so many resources to get their children back in school.
We have a team here at our school called the Behavior Health Team, and that's a team that reaches out once the teacher has exhausted all of her efforts with students for being chronically absent. They dig even deeper and contacting the family, and then we call the family in and have a conference with the family to see exactly what is it that we can do, what can we provide as a resource for this child to come to school. And a lot of times when that behavior health team reaches out, there are reasons that we find that we wouldn't have known that's wrong with this child.
If you're a teacher, encourage your children, your students to come to school regularly. Create a sense of belonging in the classroom, recognize when a student's been absent and welcome them back. School districts, if they're clear, can really help parents make the best choices for their children. When they're silent and they don't say anything, parents are left to guess and often will guess and err on the side of caution.
So making sure that they understand the policies and that they understand the importance of regular attendance. That's really important. And doing it from a way of being partners with family and caregivers is also really important. So making sure that we're creating supports that address those underlying needs.
I have cafe with the principal bi-weekly, where I'm sitting down having coffee, things like that with parents around what can they do to help impact students coming into the building. We have our parent advisory committee that we're meeting with those parents to talk about not just the absenteeism, but ways for the parents to get more involved.
We know that parents appreciate hearing positive information about how their children are doing in school and not just having that first notification be about something that's not going great or that's going bad.
My name is Loretta Jones, and this is Amir Younger, my great-grandson. I'm so proud of us being here at this school. Miss Fitz, the vice principal, and the principal, they are awesome. They help the children a lot. The children love them. I mean, the school is remarkable. We have a lot of things that we do here for the children.
We know it's important that students have a connection to a positive relationship with an adult in the building. And the more that we have these positive relationships in buildings, students are also more likely to come to school regularly. Having someone say, we missed your laughter when you're not at school, or we missed something about you when you're not at school, that personalization helps students feel like they belong and then they want to come to school regularly.
It's extremely important to build relationships with families. A lot of times it's not within their locus of control to deal with the circumstances that they are in to cause the chronic absenteeism. And I tell them personally from the principal that I am looking forward to seeing their children at school during the daytime. And I believe that makes an investment in a parent, that the people inside of this building care about their children, and that regardless of whatever situation they go to, they won't experience any trauma here. because we're here to address the trauma.
There are a lot of schools that are also connecting to broader community organizations, those trusted community organizations, and talking to them about the importance of regular attendance. And so really taking this wraparound approach so that the community is also involved. That could be faith organizations, it could be doctors, it could be a lot of different places, and having those trusted community members better understand and be able to explain the importance of students regularly attending school can make a world of difference.
Students want to come to school when there are positive conditions for learning in place. So when they feel safe, when they feel a sense of belonging and connection and support, when they have academically relevant, challenging, interesting, fun, exciting learning to look forward to, and when there are adults who are healthy and well and able to support them with positive relationships.
End of the month, we have attendance assemblies. At those attendance assemblies, our music program students get to perform. It really means so much to them. They look forward to it all month, which means you have to be here because you have to practice. You want to be here in after school because that's the time you get extra practice. And you want to be here because you want to be in the audience to be able to watch your friends as well. So it allows their peers to encourage them to keep coming to school. It just takes it up another level where it's not even adults having to encourage you to get to school. It's students checking up on each other.
When I come to school here, it feels amazing. I really like coming to school here because of the teachers and the way that they teach, and they really do care for the students here. They have a lot of love for us, and they really do try to help us to the best that they can. Even if something is happening at home, you can come to school and they can try to help you feel better, just in case something bad did happen at home. Or even if something happens at school, you can go to any teacher here and they can brighten up your day. They try to connect with you more than just being a teacher, and they try to actually be a family here with you, and they also help the students get their work done to the best of their ability.
It's about socialization. It's about making sure that students feel connected. And those things don't happen if students aren't in school regularly. The more that students are engaged, the more likely they are to attend school.
If you were to come into my classroom, I try to make it like an oasis. And I tell my students when they come in, we're gonna just sit here for 1 minute and we're gonna zen. And I feel like that gives my student an opportunity to do something that they probably on a regular basis don't have that opportunity to just stop, be in the moment, just get all that energy out and just be still. And my students really enjoy that.
I think a really big thing I like about school is the environment. Like, I'm really close to a lot of the students here. I like the teachers here. They are always like really happy and happy to see everyone. It's just a really good environment to be in.
The best schools in America where students are performing at their best is where there's 100% of adults in the building that believe in kids. 100% of the adults here have to believe in children and their dreams. So when kids come to our school, not only are they getting an opportunity to engage in a rigorous curriculum that's going to prepare them for college and careers, they're going to get an opportunity to take a shot at their goals and their dreams. So when you walk through our school, you hear kids playing instruments, you hear kids in the studio preparing music, you see kids drawing, you see kids dancing, and you see kids interacting and playing with technology on a consistent basis.
My name is Mr. Kelly. I'm the Youth Intervention Specialist, and I'm the music instructor for Metcalfe Music Therapy. It's a safe space for our kids to come create, be creative, learn how to do music production, learn how to perform.
Tier 1, we don't play with suspension. We restorative, check our attendance. We love school, that's why we in a classroom. We getting educated, that's what we let her do. The vision, shout out to the admin team. Mr. Fubby, Miss Fitzgerald, even Mr. Green. Chronic absenteeism, it's time to intervene.
If they have any problems, any situations they're going through, they can come here and write a song, write a poem, or even just have a safe space to just think and be next to their peers. It keeps them engaged and coming to school, and they keep me focused coming to work because they're so talented.
Adults in our building want to spend extra time with students, tapping into their talents so that they can show the students and expose their belief system in children. And whenever students form that connection, that's when they're here, and that's when chronic absenteeism is eliminated, because they're coming to school every day for a connection. Our district has done so much work to make sure that we have an effective curriculum in front of them. So it's up to us as adults to create the culture where we can have those connections in our building.
Where we want to make sure that schools are intentionally building their culture and climate for their students, so the students feel like this is a positive, supportive, safe environment for them, and this is where they want to be.
Students telling you, here's what I want you to do to create my joy, my happiness in the building. That's what we're doing to combat that chronic absenteeism and the overall attendance in our building.
We hear a lot right now about people coming back as adults to their offices rather than working in their homes, and how there's a pep in people's step when they connect with other colleagues in the halls and have other conversations. The same applies for schools, for students.
10% of our students that are considered STLS, which means they're homeless. So we have to be cognizant of that. So what do? You need a bus card, you need multiple bus cards, you need shoes, coat, whatever it is, so that that student gets here to school.
We really had to get out there and just hit the ground running. I start my day out in the front, out there talking to the parents, talking to the students, getting to know what they need. And I make sure that we have a staff that have a similar vision. And so they are out there making sure that our parents know who we are and we know who our parents are, and our students know who we are.
My daughter's a kindergartner here. The first day of school, we walked up to the building. The staff was outside, the principals were outside to greet the kids and everything. So it was just a great experience, and it has been every day. And I can say when I drop my daughter off in the mornings, from the smallest kids to the largest kid, they're always excited to be at school every day. So that speaks volumes.
We have a parent room now, and so they come in, they talk to us about their needs, their wants, their desires for the school, and then we have those conversations. Sometimes we might not be able to, meet all those expectations, but just having the conversation so that the parents know that we're listening and that we want to do everything in our power to make the school what the community needs for success allows us to build the trust that's needed that we kind of lost during the pandemic.
We feel that it's extremely important to set those trends right now in elementary school. Set the importance for families to know that you have to be at school every single day to learn. Any day that you're not here, you could miss out on an opportunity to learn something that you may need. Also, we have an abundance of resources for families, and if they're not here, they can't get those resources. So we make sure that we're a place that's always going to remain open for the families, our students, and our communities to get resources.
These strategies work because they're meeting students' and families' needs.
If the students come to school happy, ready to learn, they're enjoying their classes, and if they're engaged, then it trickles down to the teachers, to the custodians, to the administration. So it's just a positive cycle. And then it just makes the school feel alive.
No question, we always ask us whose responsibility is attendance. It's everyone's responsibility because it is not a one-person job. It is also not one voice that might convince a student to come back if they've left. So we all have to be cognizant of how important this is and why we have to make sure we're all talking about it, because I might have an answer that you need, but if you don't know to come and talk to me, there's a loss there. I think it's really important that we're all considered stakeholders in this conversation, because when the student knows that they're needed and they're missed, that makes all the difference in the world.
It takes always making sure that we're always trying to cultivate that positive culture.
To be honest, a lot of the strategies that we started with didn't work. But that didn't mean that we just stopped. We just kept trying. We kept talking to parents, and we kept talking to students, and we kept talking to staff members until we found success.